Very fortunate to be joined by Ajmal Masroor. I'm sure Ajmal won't need an introduction to many of you, but for those of you who are not familiar with him, Ajmal is a London-based Imam. He's studied with a number of prominent scholars, both in the UK and overseas, and has an MA in Islamic Studies. Beyond this, he's also a broadcaster. You may well have seen him on national TV and radio. He also appears on the Islam channel. And he's also a relationship counsellor, and he runs an institute called Barefoot Institute, which I'm sure he's going to talk about during his talk. So, the format for today is Ajmal is going to be talking for about half an hour, and after that we're going to open up to the floor for Q&A. So please be thinking about things that you might want to ask Ajmal. Obviously, if you have something you want to ask individually at the end, there will be some time to do that. So, without further ado, I'll hand things over to Ajmal.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Come on, you can do better than that. And I'm not going to try again. It is a Friday evening, and I'm pretty certain you would rather be enjoying your evening with your families and friends, but you've chosen to be here, and many of you do come here regularly. I'm pretty certain you find this an amazing opportunity to connect and stimulate each other intellectually and socially, and this is part and parcel of our journey. Bear with me if I get a bit too excited, because I've just got off the pulpit earlier on today as an Imam doing Friday sermons, and when you have an Imam on the pulpit, it's not the easiest thing to not get excited. And I spoke about International Women's Day. That was yesterday, but I spoke about it today. And I dedicated this sermon today to the ladies of our society and told men how to behave. In the middle of my sermon, a man did get up and he started saying, excuse me, but others told him to shush and sit down. I didn't have to do anything. But you know, it's an honor to have that privilege to stand on a pulpit and to speak your mind. And I've been doing it for nearly 25 years. Fortunately, I don't get paid for it. So nobody controls what I say. I can say what I want, and I can walk away. I intend to do the same here today. I will say what I want, and if you don't like it, I'll ask you to forgive me first. And if you still don't like it, then I'm sorry, you have to live with it. But please do challenge me at the end, either in the group conversations or personally. So, I'm from the Barefoot Institute, as you can see. I'm going to talk about Muslim marriage in a secular society. You may have heard these talks before, but I'll try my best to keep it as new and as fresh as possible. So first question that we all need to consider is, what is marriage in Islam? Why is it any different to standard definitions of marriage? Marriage is a social and legal relationship between a man and a woman. It intends to strengthen and extend family, and is based on commitment to God. There are three clear, distinct, I believe, definitions of Islamic marriage. It's a legal contract and a social contract between a man and a woman. Whereas love, well, it doesn't count. Not in the contract. And the purpose of this particular definition clearly says it's to strengthen as well as extend family. And finally, it's a commitment based on your belief in God. So just keep that in mind as we progress, and we'll come back to it again and again. The verse of the Quran that I like and I always talk about and I always quote, which outlines the purpose of marriage. You've heard this before, but I'll repeat again. Allah says in the Quran, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Amongst his signs, his wonders, is this, that he's created a mate for you, out of you, or your own kind, so that you might incline towards them. And he engenders love and tenderness between you. In this, behold, there are signs or messages for those who reflect or think. Just look at this verse for a minute and you can see several themes arising in one. Firstly, it outlines the wonders of Allah's creation and the mystery behind it. And more so, the mystery behind the creation of man and woman. And the kind and the nature of the two. And the fact that they both come from the same root and the same origin. And then it talks about why man and woman have been created in that way. So that it may be attracted to one another. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا actually doesn't translate as attracted to one another, but it means to find a comfortable home with one another. If you ask an Arab, أَيْنَ تَسْكُنُوا? Arab would say, أَسْكُنُوا, I live in. Immediately they associate sakina, Arabic word, to where they live. And then it talks about love and mercy. The key lessons that you draw from this particular verse I've outlined for you. You and your spouse are both from the same human race. To respect and accept one another as equal is the most important principle that you need to consider on that verse. The purpose of marriage is to create a safe space for you and your spouse for a healthy and wholesome emotional, spiritual and physical space and growth. I know after marriage we all grow physically quite quickly. I did put on a lot of weight myself. I did put on 3 stones. I know you won't believe it. I was much bigger than I am. And I lost it very quickly because I realized, oops, what's going on? I normally wear 32 size trousers, waist size. It became 38. I said, what? 38? It's impossible. Anyway, but where we do miss is the emotional and spiritual growth. If my emotional and spiritual growth was as good as my physical growth, I'd be happy. Well, I would have been happy. And third, the most important ingredients for marriage is outlined in this verse. Success of marriage is dependent on love and mercy, the 2 amazing ingredients. If you're an alchemist, you put them together and create something amazing out of it. And the last, no relationship is ever complete without regular evaluation and reflection. So most of you who are working in the corporate world, regular monitoring, regular evaluation, regular checks to see if you're doing well, you're delivering to the targets that you've taken, milestones, all the rest of the jargons that you use. Allah is using exactly the same in your marriage. لِقَوْمِ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, signs for those who reflect. What are you reflecting about? The wonders of the creation? No. You're reflecting about your marriage. Asking your spouse, how am I doing? How are we doing? Can we do things differently? So, Islamic marriage is based on these key lessons. That you and your wife or your husband, you come from the same human species. And you have to create a safe space for your emotional and spiritual growth. Ingredients for success is love and mercy together. And you have to continuously and regularly reflect. So, that's where Islamic marriage comes in. Marriage helps to develop a safe and secure environment to explore and express emotions. You're able to tell what you want to tell to your wife without fear. So as I was leaving today, I said to my wife, well, I'm going away, I'm not coming back until Sunday now. So it's going to be your eat anything weekend. And she laughed, she goes to me, yeah, it is. But later on, she realized what I had said, so she texted me. She said to me, so you think we eat boring food when you're not at home? Then she wrote, tonight's menu, mozzarella cheese and basil starter, spaghetti bolognese, apricot and mascarpone toasted almond dessert. So I wrote back, I'm coming home now. I could say that without fear. I could say that to my wife without fear, that actually you're going to be eating boring food. And she did not take it as an insult. And I could get something in return without feeling insulted. It's a safe space where you can actually express your emotions. I love you. I actually don't feel like saying I love you today. I don't have to love you every day in the same way. I'm feeling very upset. I'm feeling very angry. It's a safe space to explore and express your emotions. It's a safe space to allow couples to enjoy mutual intimacy and sexual pleasures. It's a safe space to create a safe and nurturing environment for bringing up children. It is, and it will help you bring equilibrium and balance in your life, both physically and emotionally. Comes a time when you realize the most important outcome of a marriage is emotional and physical equilibrium. You no longer chase your tail. You feel comfortable. You feel content. And it strengthens families. So I'm going to move away from that to giving you the definition of a family, because I've talked about family all the way. I'm putting the context in first. Allah says in the Quran, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ مِنَ الْمَاءِ بَشَرٍ, and from the water He has created human. فَجَعَلَهُ نَسَبًا وَسِحْرًا وَكَانَ رَبُّكَ قَدِيرًا. And He says He established relationship of lineage and marriage. Lineage and marriage, for your Lord is ever infinite in His power. This verse is where I want to lay down the foundation of a Muslim family. Muslim family composes of two things. Legally married couple, a man and a woman, husband, wife, of course, and their children. That's one component. The other component is the lineage. Also includes your parents, siblings, and other blood relatives. All Muslim families come into existence through these two means: blood relationship or marriage. It's a very important definition to keep in mind, because that's what the Quran says. That's how Allah defines family. Not the way I define family, maybe not the way my society defines family, but Allah's definition is there are two important components in any Muslim family: blood relationship and anyone who comes into the family through marriage. Challenges, therefore, in the current context, which is the secular world. Challenge number one, there is a constant demand for a change in definition of marriage. It's very important to know that Islam does not support nuclear family per se. And Islam does not support overbearing extended families per se. It strikes a balance between the two. The challenges we have at this moment in time in the modern world, in secular world, is the constant bombardment of nuclear family continuously. It's me, my wife, and my children. That's it. Nobody else matters. My parents don't matter. My siblings don't matter. They're not my family. They're my extended family. But Allah doesn't define a family like that. That's a problem. I can see that's a problem in the society in which we live. Many a times I hear boys and girls having conflict with their in-laws because of their approach to how they consider in-laws playing a role in the overall philosophy of family. And Islam defines them as integral part of your family. They're not the other. They're part of your family. In fact, when I was talking to my wife about this, we obviously constantly exchange notes on these issues. She said something very interesting. She said, yes, it is true, of course. So by having these two strands combining to create a family, my family, my parents, my brothers and sisters, and her family, her mother, her father, her brothers and sisters, they all become part of my new family. So it's not just my parents and her, it's not just her parents, her and I, no. It's both of our parents and our siblings combined together, creating a new family. That's one strand, and the other strand is our blood. That's a big challenge for us, because that's not happening in our society today. I think there is a lot of clash. I'm not going to live with my in-laws. I don't want to know them. I don't want to see them. I don't want you to go and see your parents. I don't want you to talk to them. I have clients who are regularly squabbling over this. I have every day. Yes, I hear it. I see it. I see marriage contracts being ripped apart because of this. It comes from the overbearing influence of the secular culture in which we live. where the spiritual definition of family no longer is valid. It's me, and me. I don't care about your family. I don't care about anybody else. It's me. I'm married to you. I'm not married to your parents. I've heard such languages too. I'm not married to your parents. I don't want to see them. You go and see them if you want. In fact, I forbid you from seeing them too. I've heard that too. It comes from that very, very strong influence of secular culture in which we see it's me, and me, that's all. Then the changing definition is now requiring acceptance of forget marriage as a concept, where two people have come together, commitment in presence of Allah, commitment to extend or have family strengthened. Now we're talking about people who are going in and out of relationship in cohabiting setup. I don't want to be married. I just want to live with you. I want to see how it goes. 5 years, 10 years down the line, I'm still seeing how it's going. When will I marry you? Well, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. What would you mean you're not ready yet? We've been together for 5 years, 10 years. Muslims are doing the same, I'm afraid. It's not just non-Muslims who are doing it. I get many young professional couple who would come to me and say, we met at the university and we got into a relationship. We never did our nikah, we never did our marriage, we're together. We're just experimenting to see how things go, and when we're ready, we'll let you know. Why do you need to let me know? I'm nobody. You need to let yourself know that. How long would you need to find out about the other person? The cohabitation.
Are you talking about the Muslim community or non-Muslim?
Would you kindly allow to the end of my talk so you can ask? I can be easier to answer for me. Just hold on to your thoughts.
So if you just hold your question to the end, and if you allow Ajmal to finish, then we'll take the Q&A afterwards.
No, this is not the question.
So if you can just keep it to yourself for the moment and allow Ajmal to finish, then we can take it afterwards. Thank you.
So cohabitation has become also a challenge within the Muslim community, but of course the wider society is more prominent because the rate of marriage is dropping in the wider society. Less people are getting married, but Muslims are no different. I'm afraid they're also doing the same thing in some ways, though the rate of marriages within the Muslim community is much higher. Then there is also a demand for same-sex marriage in certain quarters, and I have had many Muslims who have come to me and said, look, I'm in a same-sex relationship. I pray 5 times a day. I have fasted in the month of Ramadan. I'm Muslim, but I'm gay. Can I get married? There is a demand to redefine marriage in that context. There is also Muslim women trying to get married to non-Muslim men, happening more often than any other that I've just talked about so far. Many professional, in your work environment, you do meet people who are very good. Amazing guy. Why shouldn't I marry him? He's far better than many Muslims I know. I hear that all the time. I get a phone call from somebody saying, could you please conduct my nikah? I'm getting married to a non-Muslim guy. And when I say no, very disappointed. I'm very disappointed. I thought you were a progressive Imam. Immediately I fall foul of not being any progressive any longer. Somebody even said to me, I thought you were liberal, but you sound like an extremist now until the phone down. And I don't, of course, react to it. I understand that there is blindness due to love or maybe passion that's overtaken the person. So I'm very happy to listen to it, but it's happening. So there is a demand to redefine the marriage as a concept, as opposed to the definition I gave at the beginning. The socioeconomic dynamics are also making marriage and the institution of marriage being challenged. I no longer need to depend on my wife, or my wife does not need to depend on me. It's the other way around, I suppose. More male went to work before women are going to work. Why do I need to do anything? So socioeconomic dynamics also require both the parties to work outside, putting huge amounts of pressure at home. And if there is a marriage, who goes to work, what time, who comes home, who does the cooking, who does the cleaning, do we all do them together? There are lots of socio-economic dynamics that are also demanding a change in definition of marriage. And the last one is free gender interactions, means I can have sex anytime I want, with anybody I want. Why do I need to get married anymore? Sex has become so widely available. It's no longer a taboo. It's not a crime in this country to have sex outside marriage. What's wrong with it as far as the wider perception is concerned? There is a demand on the part of some of the Muslims within the society in which we live, the secular society in which we live, that we are also getting the same thing. Why do I need to get married? So the value of marriage is demeaning or diminishing every day with these challenges, with these influences from the secular world. Changing expectations is also the second type of challenge that I we find in our work, in our experience. Individualism versus community, like I said earlier on, I want to get married, but I'm looking for the best man, best woman. I'm looking for the perfect person, the perfect wife, perfect housemaid, perfect cook, perfect mother, perfect, a lot of perfect, or Mr. Right, Miss Right. It continues. This becomes a very much of an individual search to find perfection, as opposed to the greater interest of the community, which what marriage serves. It does not just serve your own need, but it also serves the wider society's need. When you forget that, individualism becomes a problem, and community, of course, pays a huge price. So if we were to look at this statistically, the more people stay single, the more we impact on the overall the health of the entire community. It's no longer community, it's me. It's what Mrs. Thatcher's classical statement is when she said, what is a community? Or something like, what communities don't exist. The idea that it's no longer an issue. Second one, in the expectation list, choices you make are constantly marketed to you by a materialistic society. From what you eat, to what you wear, how your wedding should be, what kind of house you live, all of this is determined by somebody else. It's no longer determined by you. Huge challenge in the secular world. Sustaining a marriage has become a difficult task. Even getting married has become too expensive. I saw a report the other day in one of the ethnic channels where they found, on average, most weddings cost £50,000 to £100,000 nowadays, just to get married. Now this is at a lower scale. I went to a wedding in Alexandra Palace not that long ago, where 10,000 people came, and the bride and the groom entered, they landed on the palace with 2 different helicopters. And they left the wedding in one helicopter, alhamdulillah. I was happy about that. And we worked out their costs, just estimated our costs, sitting there, just out of curiosity, not jealous. Why would I be jealous? I'm married already. But I was thinking, how much did they cost? And I found out it would cost you £250,000 just to hire Alexandra Palace for 10,000 people. So they must have spent about £1 million, or near enough, for just a wedding. For what? One day show. What has influenced them? It's been determined by the happiness indicator, the Hollywood and the Bollywood culture, the movies. Otherwise it's not good enough. Where your kids would study have become a bone of contention, again influenced by the secular world. It's no longer whether your son or your daughter would become a Muslim scholar, a young man or a young woman who would grow up and become the highest achieving graduate, but also have memorized the Quran, also have learned hadith, also have learned seerah. No, it's not like that. It's which private school can I give my son or daughter access to, which postcode will enable me to get to the best grammar school or best state school so that my son or my daughter can become part of the system. And in order for that to happen, I need to forego everything and be at the cutting edge of achievement and attainment. That's become the focus. Your financial stability is considered more important than your emotional and spiritual health at home. Working 24 hours a day, and I often say to some of my friends, what time do you go to work? I often say to one of my best friends, and he says to me, I leave home at 7, and I get to work by 8. And what time do you come home? I leave work at 7, and I come home at 8. So it's a 12-hour shift you have. He said, yes, I do. And I said, how much do you earn? And he gave me a figure of how much he earned. And I said to him, my friend, I don't work like that. I work as a freelance worker as and when I want to. And I showed him my tax return, and he was shocked. He goes to me, you earn almost as me. And I said, I'm not a slave to your system, I'm not. I work in the environment where I feel I can make best contribution without becoming a slave. And I invest in, and my wife and I were very careful about this, invest in our emotional and spiritual health, not as much as in our financial health. And Allah has kept us very happy, absolutely happy. Financially, never complain. And the final one is, there is a huge challenge in expectations, and when the expectations are not met, escapism sets in. So you can't deal with the problem, let's go on an expensive holiday, let's get a cruise, let's buy a new car, let's go on a shopping spree, let's do this. Again, the influence of secular world, material world, in which you are sustaining a marriage which is based on spiritual connection between two people, you are looking at the wrong thing. You're looking at the wrong thing completely. And the third is depleting spiritual values. I've been mentioning it before, but let me explain that a bit more. Erosion of a definite value system. When I came home the other day, my daughter said to me, "Daddy, she's 12. What's wrong with marrying a non-Muslim guy?" 12 years old girl. She's experimenting already. I could see her mind ticking away, and I could remember myself doing the same thing to my father when I was young. So I was ready. So I said to her, "Nothing wrong. Have you found somebody?" She laughed. She goes, "No, not yet." I said, "So what do you think then? What's your answer?" She goes, "I'm not sure." So they were talking to one another. My son was next to her, and he said, "Well, I'm not sure if it's going to work." And they were having this debate. Then she said, "Well, maybe a problem. He will want haram food and I want halal food in their little world." And he goes, "You know what? If you've got haram food, I'm not going to come to your house." The brother said this to her. So they had that debate. After the debate, the dinner was over. I didn't intervene. I just let them debate it. 3 days later, my daughter came and said to me, "Daddy, I've been thinking about this." I said, "About what?" She goes, "About that Muslim and non-Muslim marriage you talked about." I said, "I didn't talk about it, you did." She goes, "Yes." She goes, "I think there is a problem." "What's the problem, darling?" I asked her. She goes, "Value system." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "To be my value system would be very different to his. And if our value systems are very different, we won't be able to live together in happiness at all." That's a 12-year-old for you. I didn't train her in this way. She has understood this from her basic fitra, her natural disposition. So value system has disappeared from our society, from our looks and our searches for marital partner. And in our marriage, value system no longer become and has been a prominent feature. It's been eroded very quickly. Godliness is most important in a Muslim marriage, should be, but what's replaced it today is godlessness. Materialism and escapism has become the most important feature of our marriage. Secularism is about godlessness, I'm afraid. And the secular world's influence is very visible in our families, in our lives. God, who needs God when I'm happy with material? You don't need God. That's what the secular world teaches us. And Muslims are not immune from it. Moral decadence. Morality is no longer a yardstick by which a husband and a wife maintain a sacred relationship. Or in some cases, it doesn't matter anymore. Morals, it's alright. You can bend morality a little while. I remember a husband and a wife told me, he is now becoming more practicing. And she is not as practicing. So he says, "I would like my wife to become practicing." And in the debates and the discussions that they've had, they've fallen out now. So she said, "I don't understand this guy. He was drunk in a nightclub when I met him. What morality is he teaching me right now? He may have decided to change his morals, but I haven't. I'm not interested. We can end our relationship." In fact, this was a Muslim couple. Loss of ethical boundaries. What is acceptable and what is not acceptable? Whether it is in the intimate space or in bringing up children. What is acceptable and what isn't? Secular education is another prominent one. Each and every one of us in this room have been educated, most likely, predominantly in a secular establishment. What's the influence of that secular establishment in your mind, in your psyche, in your well-being, in your conscious mind and the subconscious mind? What plays a huge role? I believe secularism does. And I believe secular education erodes away, takes away your godliness slowly but surely. It stops you from actually connecting with God in a real meaningful way. I believe this. I may be completely wrong in individual cases, but in the wider observation is what we have found. And the final one is cultural imperialism. We live in a society in which perhaps you feel culturally inferior. You need to copy the Western model, you need to copy the Bollywood model, the Hollywood model, otherwise you don't think it's good enough. Perhaps you feel your culture is backwards. Perhaps you don't think your culture is fun enough. Maybe you need to do something else. These are the challenges. Solutions that I have found, and I go back to the Quranic one, and of course then I will end and we can have a discussion. Allah defines the relationship between man and woman using a garment analogy. You're wearing a garment right now, and each and every one of your garment is sitting on your skin, and your skin and your garment, and there is no gap. Your garment knows you so well. It knows the smell, the texture, things that you don't want the world to know, your garment knows. A husband and wife relationship is like that. And it can be very scary for some people. I don't want to be so vulnerable. I don't want my husband to know me so well. I don't want my wife to know me so well. But I'm afraid you have no choice. When you have a relationship with somebody, and when you sleep with somebody next to somebody every day, and you see them in every way possible, you become like the garment. However, if you don't become like the garment, and you follow some of the earlier things that I've talked about, then there is a problem. Problem becomes barriers, problems become in creating intimacy, problems become more apparent in communication, in expectations that you've been developing. I remember one couple who I'm counselling who said, I have never seen my wife without makeup on. What do you mean? Well, before I wake up, she wakes up and she's ready. I asked her why, and she said, I lack confidence about myself. What happened? Of course, as a counsellor, we need to go back to what happened in the childhood of her life. She was told she was ugly, she was too dark, she was not fair enough as an Asian in this fair skin. You're dark, you are kala, you're a dark girl. We don't really think you'll get a good husband. They're looking for fair guys, fair girls, and so on. These are embedded in her psyche. So she's dark-skinned. So she wants to cover herself constantly, not to show the world that she's good-looking or she's good-looking at all. There's another case where the mother told the girl that you are growing up, and any part of your body, as you're growing up, your body will start growing, and it will be dirty and disgusting, and you must hide it all the time. So she was told off for growing breasts as something disgusting. It should not even, never should it be even understood that you've got breasts. So now she is in her 40s, she wears clothes deliberately to hide, and he said in the counselling room, I've been married to her for 10 years. She has never taken her bra off in front of me. It's a difficult one, right? But these are some of the problems that happens in our life when we don't understand the concept of marriage from the libas perspective, garment perspective as Allah defines it. And when you move away from spirituality to material, your spiritual definition is gone. You're now looking for material. And material means you must always look perfect. You must always look good. If you don't, then it makes no sense. However, Allah is proposing, Quran is proposing a more spiritual solution. Key lessons we learn. It covers your body, protects you from the weather, hides your imperfection, guards your shame, protects your privacy, beautifies us, and it's never perfect. No matter how much you spend, your garment can never be perfect. No matter how much you spend in a wedding, your garment, your wife, your husband will never be perfect. I often remind this to couples when I do the nikah. I say it on stage. I say to the couple, if you're expecting perfection from your husband, I've got bad news for you. And the other way around too. Never expect it. However, what we should be looking for in this very difficult world, secular influence is so high, so huge, to create a space of spirituality, we need to look at the complementary role man and woman have. Supportive, providing support where support is needed, as opposed to taking over. You need to lend a hand voluntarily rather than be asked. Understanding, being supportive of each other's ambitions and aims in life. You need to understand each other's dreams. No point scoring. All discussions do not have to end in arguments or be about who won the debate or who scored the last or the final point. If you understand it from that perspective, that libas, spiritual connection, is about being supportive like a garment is. It's about understanding like my garment is. It's about not point scoring like my garment never scores points against me, it's mine, and it's that unique relationship. You suddenly realize, actually marriage is a very different challenge, it's a very different ball game. Being conscious of each other's well-being is not only your desire and welfare that requires attention, your spouse also has needs. Mutual well-being includes physical and spiritual, are at the core of your relationship. Not just your own, but your wife. So for example, I try and go to the gym 3 times a week, I try. My wife reminded me this morning when I woke up, are you going to the gym today? I said, yes I am. Thank you very much for reminding me. I wasn't offended by it. I thought it was fantastic. I would remind my wife, my children, have we prayed? Have you prayed? Have you done your prayers? It's not an offensive thing to do. So it's about each other's well-being Not just the physical, but also spiritual. Have we read the Quran together? When was the last time we sat down and explained what? I asked my daughter the other day, what did you ask Allah in your last prayer? She goes to me, oh, I can't remember. I said, so you prayed, darling, and you don't remember what you asked Allah? She goes, no. I said, then do you think you prayed? She goes, no, I didn't pray. That's the connection. So as a family, if you can connect at that level, it's just a completely different relationship. Bringing out the best out of one another, nurturing and encouraging wholesome growth and progression in marital life is also a key ingredient for a lasting relationship. A stale and stagnant relationship is soul destroying. Many people come to me saying, I'm bored of my marriage. I've been with my husband, my wife for so long, he or she doesn't, I don't get excited by them anymore. When they say this to me, I want to know, what are they talking about? Are you talking about sexual excitement? I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed very quickly. No human being can excite you in the same way as they excited you at the beginning. But do they excite you spiritually? If they don't, then you should be more worried. If they excite you spiritually, continuously, amazing. If they excite you intellectually, brilliant. It's about knowing how to bring the best out of the other. And complementary skills and attributes. My wife doesn't allow me in the kitchen, not because I can't cook. It's just that I make a mess. So she told me, when I'm at home, please don't go in the kitchen. Stay out. When I'm not around, good luck, you can cook what you like. I love cooking, so I do, but I make a huge mess, but I clean up, no problem. It's about knowing that I can speak in public. My wife, though she speaks in public, she's very good at one-to-one conversations. It's about knowing that my wife is a brilliant educator. While I am an outdoor person, I will give my children all the outdoor skills that they need. It's knowing that I am an Imam, I have a public role, and my wife knowing that, and understanding that that role needs support, and she has a private role, and it's knowing that I need to support her. Understanding what skills and attributes we have and utilizing them to the best of our abilities. Last and the final slide, modern challenges in the Muslim marriage in the context of what I've said, therefore, it's about work commitment and work-life imbalance. If you can restore balance, if you can understand your work commitment should not come at the expense of your family, then you have understood the concept of marriage from the right perspective. What use is your money if you can't spend half an hour with your wife or your husband? What use is your money if you've been chasing your tail for 20 years only to realize, oops, I've become so distant from my family, my children have grown up, I don't even know who they are. Second one, lack of extended family support structure is a problem. How do we solve it? By understanding and embracing the Islamic definition of family. Blood and marriage. Lineage and marriage. My family, her family, and my marriage together, we become one huge family. You don't have to live under the same roof if that's what you're worried about. Unless you're very rich, that's a different discussion. Or that's what you choose to. You still need to embrace each other's family as equal and honor them. That extended support would be magnificent for you to grow and flourish together. Of course, every family has its squabbles and troubles. No families come without troubles. They do. Prophet ﷺ had problems with his wives. You and I, of course we'll have. It does not mean you throw the baby with the bathwater. So extended family support network needs to be nurtured and created. And we need to redefine our understanding of family. Urban and more congested living is a problem. It's a huge problem for us. We're not enjoying a community. We're living in flats. 500 of us in one block, nobody knows each other. We don't see one another. There is no communal space. Though as Muslims we go to the mosque and get connected, but how often? How many sisters go to the mosque? And mosques, how many of them have space for sisters? You know the story about my fights with mosques that don't have space for sisters. You don't? Well, if you do not, then check it out and find out. And the next one is dilution of traditional Islamic values. Islamic values are no longer the gel that keeps the family together. I was teaching my children respect for the family, respect for your grandparents, respect for your neighbors, respect for your parents, respect for your brother, to your sister, respecting each other, honoring one another. So my son said to me, how do I respect you, Daddy? Very simple question. He goes to me, I love you, but how do I respect you? He wants to know. So I need to teach him that. But I just don't need to teach him that. I need to exemplify it in my life. So the fact that I go to my mother's house every day, he knows I go there out of love. But he also knows my respect for my mother is huge, because he has seen me respecting her in my action every way possible. So it's about showing respect. It's about embracing respect in your family life, whether it's just the two of you or anybody else. Inconsistencies between faith and personal practices is a huge problem. We need to become consistent with our faith, with our practices, not say one thing and do something very different. Especially in a marital relationship, if you are, your wife will find out very quickly. Your husband will know very quickly. He talks about prayer to everybody else, he doesn't pray. He gives big lectures about kindness and compassion, but he has none of that in his life. He talks about never to lie, but he lies. Or she does the same thing. It's very, very unfortunate that I come to know these things when people come to complain to me. I have big people who come with counseling issues, and one of the big problems is inconsistencies in their lives. Ill-disciplined lifestyle, you come home, you watch a bit of television, you fall asleep in front of television, you play with your games, whatever, consoles, you're on your television, on your phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, you are continuously ill-disciplined. You go to sleep late, you wake up late, or you wake up early. There is no discipline in your life. How much you eat, what you watch, what you don't watch, and then you suddenly think, okay, I'm going to become disciplined after I'm married. It's not going to work. Cultural blindness that overrides Islamic norms. You may be thinking, I'm Pakistani, I'm Bengali, I'm Arab, that's more important than Islam. Again, you're opening up yourself to problems. In a society where we are, those cultural norms are no longer norms, because here in Britain, British norm is a multi-faceted norm. In each and every one of our families, norm is something that you create. My wife is Hungarian, by the way. I'm Bangladeshi in ethnic origin. I must accept my wife's culture as equally valid as mine. She must accept the same. We must bring to our children both of those cultures valid and equal. And we need to introduce to our family and our children that English culture is also equally valid and acceptable. My children can choose which one they want, or if they want to mishmash of all of them. So my son and my daughter, when they're talking to their grandmother from their mother's side, so maternal grandmother, they claim to be Hunglish, Hungarian and English together. When they're talking to my parents, they call themselves Banglish, Bengali and English together. And when they're talking to their friends in the playground, they're very proud, we're English Muslims. Absolutely no problem. But cultural blindness causes trouble. But cultural neutrality creates a harmonious space. And the final one, cultural inferiority complex in relation to the dominant secular culture in which we live. Never feel inferior with spirituality, never do. I'm a Muslim. In every way possible, I'm a Muslim. Why should I hide my faith? There could be other reasons. I'm not fully aware of my faith, so I'm learning. Or it could be I have issues with my faith that I need to deal with. But under no circumstances should you accept inferiority over anybody else. As Muslim, with your own idea and identity, you should be very happy to establish your own space and carve out your own space in this multicultural society. So to finish off, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say to you something very simple. Simple in the sense that I have been married for now 17 years. What's worked for us is that my wife and I, we both have this amazing, amazing relationship. What's our relationship? What's our secret? We accept one another for who we are. We don't try and change each other for what we want our spouse to be. We never got married because of the expectations on the potential. We got married for what the person was. That's what I do, and I hope inshallah I've been able to shed some light to how to navigate the marital life before, during and after in this secular world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'd like to open up the floor now for questions and answers. So if you raise your hand, then I'll take questions from the floor and direct them to Brother Ajmal. So you had a question halfway through about cohabitation.
Not a question, but explanation that you mentioned about the co-inhabitation. You referring to the Muslim community or non-Muslim community?
Cohabitation is on the rise.
In your particular talking.
Cohabitation is on the rise in our wider society. Overall, marriages are dropping. Muslims are also getting in, some Muslims are also getting into the habit of experimenting with cohabitation. Islam doesn't allow that, we all know this. But the reality is what I was outlining as a challenge to this traditional Islamic understanding of what marriage should be, as being quite strongly challenged. So I was referring to both societies and saying that Muslims also have it.
Very small percentage.
Yes, I hope so. I pray it's very small, like you do.
So you have not done any research? Or
Nobody has done any research on Muslim marriages
it's
yet.
difficult.
Yes, of course.
People won't tell you.
You need to have a lot of money for it first, and universities are not commissioning any research on Muslim marriages. They're not. If there are rich pockets here who would like to commission a Muslim marriage survey, we would be more than delighted to pick it up at our organization and partner with many universities we've been talking to see if we can actually have a comprehensive data on some of these habits and changes. Some studies have been done, but not extensive enough. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And this
So
helicopter
if
marriage
you-
was a Muslim
If you just allow me
or a
just
non-Muslim marriage?
to make sure we have enough time to take everyone's questions, we can certainly come back to you later on. So,
No, it is not a quick one.
sir, just give me a moment. Just to be fair, we have a lot of people here. I'm
You
sure
are a
people will have
difficult
questions.
person. You don't know the
I have
language.
to try and be a fair person. That's all. So if you just raise your hands if you have a question, then we'll come to you. Yes, sir, the gentleman in the maroon top.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Is it okay to ask 2 questions or is it just one?
Why don't you go ahead with your first one first?
Okay. So it was more around challenges. So in the secular society, obviously our kids are in an education system that's very different from, let's say, what our parents went through and stuff. And even at the age of 5 and 6, where they have sex education and stuff, or where they study, that is fine for a person to have both parents that are male or female and stuff. For a 5, 6-year-old, how do you sort of explain that to them, and how do you sort of reconcile those two together? Because of course you don't want that child to, go away in school and say things that would be outlandish there, but at the same time you want to raise them with that foundation that you talked about of a family.
I would start from by practicing the very principles of Islamic marriage at home. So, for example, I would like to teach my children, and we have been doing it from the day they're born, emotional intelligence first. We need to tell them that it's okay for them to share their feelings openly. It's okay. It's okay for them to be angry, but know how to resolve them. It's okay for them to be sad, but not wallow in their sadness. It's okay for them to be feeling upset, as long as they are able to talk about their fears and their feelings. So that's the first thing. We are very, focused on giving to our children, number one. But by the way, I've skipped the elementary teaching, which is to do with basics, morals and manners. This is given. I'm assuming you accept that as given. What we are giving supplementary or extra is emotional intelligence first. And what we do in our emotional intelligence teaching to our children is that we teach children how to express it. So when my wife and I had an argument with one another, quite a fierce argument, and at the end of the argument, my wife was on one end of our house and I was at the other end. My little daughter was about 3 or 4 years old. She was running around the house and she saw both of us on 2 ends. And she thought for a few minutes and then she came to me and she said to me, "Daddy, come. Come where?" Grabbed my hand and pulled me to her mother. She said, "Mummy, turn around." So Mummy turned around. She said, "Now give each other a hug." I said, "Okay, give each other a hug." And then she goes to me, "You are happy now?" And then she walked away. We were angry with one another, but that particular gesture completely melted our heart from holding on to anger to reflecting on her intelligence. She has learned from our behavior, she has seen we have made up in our arguments, in our moments of sadness by hugging one another. So she now has come and said, "I'm going to volunteer, I'm going to be the mediator, can you please hug?" That's an important teaching to give your children. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have seen your parents ever hug? Put your hands up if you have seen your parents ever hug. Okay. Very small number, right? How many of you have ever seen your parents kiss? One. It's okay, sister. No problem. You are allowed to see. So how do you know that kissing is okay, especially kissing your wife or your husband? How do you know? Who teaches the children? I'm not talking about full-blown kiss of a different nature. I'm talking about gesture of kindness, compassion, mercy, the feeling that you have. So when you walk through the doors, husband or the wife, "Salaam alaikum" should be the first thing you should say. Open the door, "Salaam alaikum." My son said to me, "Daddy, nobody's at home." I said, "The angels are at home." And they'll say, "Wa alaikum assalam" in return. And he couldn't stop giggling. Now he does the same. And then if I'm coming home, I'll go and find my wife and I'll give her a kiss first. A hug and a kiss. I'm back. I make a big drama out of it. teach you because I want my children to learn. Assalamu alaikum everybody. And my wife says to me, why are you so loud? But you know what, brothers and sisters, that's how you teach them. So emotional intelligence, expressions of emotions is what I teach my children. And then when they're at the right age, I introduce them. So when my children were at the right age according to us, I set them down and I said to the guys, we're going to talk about something very important. I said, go ahead. So I talked to them about puberty. What does it mean when puberty sets in? Because I knew my daughter was going to become a lady of her own, making inshallah very soon. So I needed to talk to her. Her mother has already had a chat, but I wanted to give a very different picture. So I had my son and my daughter sitting together. So introducing them to that. Introducing them to sex and sexuality and human reproduction and all the rest of the stuff. So you give them with a spiritual dimension. You give them with Quran and you give them with stories. You give them with love. You don't create fear in their heart. Sex is not dirty. Sex is not a taboo. Sex is a ni'mah from Allah, a blessing from Allah. But for the right time, in the right relationship. Not for anybody. When you teach children values first, they will appreciate that. But if you teach them fear first, and you tell them it's dirty and haram, then they will have sexual relationship thinking it's haram and dirty for the rest of their life. Why would you want to take away the ni'mah by which you and I procreate on this earth and make it dirty for children? It's not dirty. It's regulated. It's not a taboo. It's not done openly. It is something that we have fun with and with the right person. So you need to teach children the value of it rather than fear of it. Can you see? So that's what I do, my dear brother. I've answered it in a long-winded way, but I wanted us to really reflect on our own childhood and rethink our own learning. What did you learn about sex? At what age? Who taught you? What's your earliest memory? And how do you think of sex right now? What about your own emotional intelligence? Where are you with all that? I hope that answers partially or wholly for your question, inshallah.
And so you have a second question?
Thank you. Yeah. The second one is a bit brief. It was just around, so you were talking about excitement between the couples spiritually, and I was just wondering, how do you actually get that spiritual excitement continuously? What kind of things can you do as a couple or as a family?
It's a very, very good point. What can you do as a couple to keep the spiritual excitement together and running, going, alive? Okay, 3 or 4 things that we do that we find very interesting. So as soon as we got married, I told my wife that I run a study circle in my local mosque. That study circle is going to move from the mosque to our house. She said to me, brilliant. So my wife and I, we started, our own home was open for 12 years for people to come and learn and for us to learn with them. It was not me teaching anyone anything. We were reflecting, bouncing off one another, and that was my wife's and my journey together in learning. What were we learning? We opened the Quran and we read the Quran together. We all read and we reflect on the meaning. That's already an intellectual and spiritual connection developing. We pray regularly together. At least one prayer a day we try our best to perform together if we're together in the same house. If I'm traveling, it's a different thing. Or she does this with the children. So one prayer a day and read Quran. We discuss topics on a regular basis. Quranic verses, hadith. Especially now that our children are growing up, we're constantly bringing new materials to teach them. So it becomes our learning point too. We go to the mosque together. I have always taken my wife to Jum'ah with me no matter where I go. Even in a mosque where they did not allow my wife, I still went in. The Soho Mosque, by the way. They said, you can't go in. I said, I'm coming in with my wife. She went inside and prayed, and it was a huge furore after that, but who cares? I went to the mosque, and I go to the mosque. When my daughter was born, she was 18. As soon as she was born, there was, the sling that you have. I carried her in my sling. We still have a very special relationship. And I did everything, going outside, election campaigning. She was on a sling with me. And when I'm doing Friday sermon in the mosque, I'm on the pulpit as the Imam, and my daughter is on a sling in front of me, and everyone is looking at her. She's looking at people. She became very accustomed to the mosque from the day, even before she was born, and of course, since her birth. Our spiritual connection deepens even further. We try and fast if we can once a week, if we can, once a month if we can. In Ramadan it becomes very difficult because I become very busy, but we break our fast. We go to Umrah, we go to Hajj if we can. Hajj once in a lifetime, but we go to Umrah once a year if we can. If we can afford it, most of the time we can't. Alhamdulillah, I'm very fortunate. I take groups and people say, come along with your wife. We'll give it to you for free, as long as you teach everybody aspects of Hajj and Umrah. And I say, Alhamdulillah, let's go. Can you see practical things that you can do? We give sadaqat together. So when I go out to charity fundraising, my wife is there in the audience. And when I say who would like to donate £5,000, often my wife's hands go straight up, or my children nowadays. You may think, how do you earn that money? I don't earn that money. Allah gives that money every time I make a promise. Every time I've made a promise that I'll give 5,000, or my son has made a promise that he will give 5,000, or my wife has made a promise that she will give 5,000, somehow the money came. I didn't have to chase money. So, from reading the Quran, to praying together, to fasting, to giving zakat, to giving sadaqat, all of this will bond you together. You don't need to do them secretly. You don't need to do them secretly. Prophet of Allah ﷺ used to wake up in the middle of the night to pray. And his house was so small and tiny. When he would give his sajda, Aisha's leg was in front of him. So he would pull her leg further away just to make some space. Was he praying secretly? No. In fact, Aisha would say some days when I'm not too tired, I would stand up with him in the middle of the night and pray. Their relationship was so close. So spiritual relationship is what you need to really be targeting, not a material relationship. The material is important, but the target should be spiritual relationship.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So to kind of address preemptively some of the challenges that you've spoken about, do you think there is an increased need for premarital counselling within the kind of Muslim community? And linked to that, what would you sort of recommend as practical actions for a couple who are about to get married to undertake before they get married?
Premarital counselling or premarital courses, I believe, should become mandatory. It should become mandatory for everybody. In Malaysia, it's mandatory. They will not do your nikah unless you have done your premarital course and you've shown their certificate that I've done it. Muslims have suffered in this country too much, for too long. When I got married the first time, if I had done a premarital course, I would still be married to my first wife. And it's a confession that I make to everybody. In my book that I wrote, it's at the back if you want to buy one, it's the first paragraph in my introductory page. If I knew what I know about my marriage, I'll still be married to my first wife. It's a failure on our part for not making it mandatory. So he is absolutely right. Everyone before marriage, if you're going to invest hundreds and thousands of pounds in parties, hiring halls, and chocolate wrappers, please invest in yourself by going to a course. And when I say going to a course, I just don't mean reading some verse of the Quran. No, I mean a practical course. A course that is grounding you, knowledge and practically. We would like to offer this over time. We've been doing small amounts, but we just don't have the capacity. It's a small team. If I had the resources, I'll roll it out full time, but I just don't have it. So inshallah, very soon we will be launching this for you and you'll see a bit more of it. We're working on it. It's nearly coming to an end for premarital course that I would say you would find easily accessible, number one. Number two, the practical steps that one should take before they get married. If you found somebody, the first thing you should do before you get married is get a reference about that person. Have you asked anybody else about this person, or have you fallen in love so much that you've become blinded by them and you're not even interested in looking at anything? Some people don't want to ask references just in case something wrong comes up. Well, hey, before you get married, it's better to find out the wrong thing than afterward, isn't it? I remember one particular person who, while considering marriage, asked me, and I said, please get a reference. He said, what do you need reference? Anyway, I convinced her, and she asked him, can I have a couple of names of people who I can speak to? He said, I don't have any friends who can give you a reference. So I said to her, you're getting married to a man who is a loner. Nobody knows him. He doesn't have two people who can give references. Are you sure you want to get married to him? I gave my warnings. She got married to him. 3 months later, she came back and she said, I should have listened to you. I should have listened to you. I did not reference him enough. What's coming out now actually isn't the man who I met. The real man is now coming out. So reference the person, please, please. Forget the romantic notion of how it may appear. Reference it. So reference meaning, ask somebody who knows them. So in other words, Umar ibn Khattab came to the mosque and said, does anyone know this guy? I want to find references about him because I want my daughter to be married to her. One man said, yes, I know him. He said, how do you know him? Well, I see him in the mosque. Umar ibn Khattab said, have you traveled with him? No. Have you lived with him? No. Have you done business with him? No. And Umar said, you're most disqualified to give references. Just because you see him in the mosque, it doesn't mean you know him. When people come to me and they say, do you know this brother? No, I don't know him. And I don't know him. If I know him, I would say I know him. So reference number one. Number two. Now, forgive me for saying this, but if you don't like it, you can park it on the side. But we live in the 21st century world. Muslim boys and girls, unfortunately and sadly, are sexually active nowadays, even before marriage. They shouldn't be, but they are. Some of them are. Not all, some of them are. There is no harm in you actually saying, I would like you to do an SDT or sexually transmitted disease screening. No harm. Why beat around the bush? Why be shy about it? Here is the issue. You have had relationships before and you've said, this is between you and Allah, you do your tawbah, you do whatever you need to do. It's none of my business. But I don't want to be carrying any diseases. Can I please have a check? If I have nothing to worry about, why not do the check? And even if I have something to worry about, and if I get checked and something comes up, maybe there is a solution to it. Maybe together you can find a solution. And the solution could be that you're no longer together. There's a better solution now than later. So I'm saying, take this blunt and brutal route. And the third thing that I am saying nowadays, and again this is something new, if you are worried about genetically inherited conditions and diseases, in Malaysia they have started genetic testing before marriage, if couples want it, just to avoid the potential fall. I don't see a reason why this is a problem, because Allah wants us to have a good life, an enhanced life. If two people's genes come together, has the propensity and likelihood of creating more troubles, then isn't it worth considering the implications? So the third one is too revolutionary for some of us. You can put it aside if you don't like it. But the first two I think are very important in the context in which we live. And then the fourth thing you must do is you must always make it public. People should know that you're considering someone for marriage. There should be no secret liaison. No temporary marriages, no marriages with the intention of divorce, none of that. I'm considering this person for marriage, everyone should know. What's wrong with that? Well, everyone will know I've been considering too many people. So what? So what? Do you feel shy when you're going to buy something and you've looked in different shops? What for? You want to make the right choice. But of course you need to have your criteria fixed, but that's not our talk today. So I'm saying, please bear this in mind. Make that public. Let everyone know that you're considering this person. Because in the Sunnah, it is not allowed for the same person to consider two people. It's not allowed. Because what you're doing is creating jealousy and unnecessary competition, and there is no competition in these things. Number 5, and the final one, this is before marriage. Before you do this, let your parents know. Let your family know. Or at least people who wish welfare on you know. If I meet a girl and if I'm shy of introducing her to my family, something is going dodgy. Why am I shy? Well, my family are not. What do you mean your family are not ready? Why not? I'm a human being. If they don't like me, they can tell me. So don't keep it secret, and also let your families know. 5 tips I'm giving before marriage. I think that was your question, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, how about a question from one of the ladies? Yes, lady.
Yeah, so what advice would you give to someone who's either a new convert or is thinking of like becoming a Muslim, but she hasn't really come from a structured family and she doesn't know how she would go about finding someone like a marriage partner? Like, what advice would you give to a woman?
That's a challenging one. And it's a challenging one because I think our communities should have done better to embrace the convert, revert communities. We have failed miserably. Many of our families would welcome and celebrate with mithai, sweets, and all the other when somebody converts. But if the same convert says, can I marry your daughter? Astaghfirullah, no. Or no, you're not from my culture, my family, no. The same people do the same. Racism is very sad. It's sickness in our community and we need to eradicate it as soon as possible. There should be no room for racism at all. Convert communities need extra support. So I would say to the converts to connect up with convert programs. There's a fantastic convert program run in Markfield, Leicester. I think it's called the New Muslims Project. Very good. So they have a national network of people who have become Muslim, and you will find support group. There is a sister called Amina who runs Turning Point. If you know her, she runs also for converts, an extensive amount of work. They operate from Good Street Mosque in Tottenham Court Road. So find a support network for somebody who is convert, so they can both have physical, emotional and spiritual support as they grow and as they make their journey. And in search for marriage, they will also support you. But for the non-convert communities, or more, as you put it, structured family background communities, for Allah's sake, fear Allah. On the Day of Judgment, you and I will be responsible for failing them miserably. If I have a structured family, and if somebody next to me didn't have one, and who embraced the deen of Allah, and you just ignored them, you and I would be in big trouble, big trouble. I remember in a mosque when somebody got up and said, "My name is John. I want you all to know that on the Day of Judgment, I will ask Allah to send you all to hell." We looked at him and said, what are you saying this for? Because you have had this mosque next to my house for the last 25 years. Not a single one of you have invited me to Islam. 25 years I'm your neighbor. Why have you deprived me of Islam? We were looking down, thinking, what should we do now? He goes, but Allah has guided me. I've become Muslim, alhamdulillah. So Allah is my witness, I will forgive you. Allah is my witness, I will not hold you accountable for this. But I am the one who is forgiving. There are many others who may not. So to the cultured, to the structured, to the ethnic, to the immigrant, to the native, to anyone who has had a family and somebody who's become a Muslim and doesn't have one, open up your door. Open up your door. Don't keep it closed. And I don't say this because I'm just a cleric, no. I say it because I have married somebody who embraced Islam. So I just don't speak about it. I practice it. And I practice it because I believe it's essential. It's an obligation on us to be able to do that. Otherwise, why are you here? Why are we here? Sorry, it's an emotional topic for me. So I speak very passionately about it.
And of course, you can always invite your friend to come to City Circle. We're very welcoming group. Yes, yeah, so there. Yes.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah. You spoke about the importance of marriage for community. And so what I was wondering was, how do you define community in different contexts? What does it sort of mean in the UK? What does it mean in a country where Muslims are the majority?
Okay. Well, that in itself is a longer talk. But just so that it's very brief. Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَنْفَعُ النَّاسِ. The best of people are the ones who are most beneficial to people. So when I get married to somebody, does my marriage benefit the society around me? Now, let me explain this. So me and my wife, as we develop a home in my neighborhood, what contribution do I make to the community, both physically and spiritually? Do I get involved in the neighborhood watch? Do I try and help my streets to stay clean? Do I help the elderly and the vulnerable in our society? Do I get involved in politics? Do I involve myself in campaigns? Do I involve in economic development and eradicating poverty? So if two people have come together, there should be a good force for good in the society. So Muslim marriage should be like that. Every couple is an amazing point of goodness for a society. And if we can't do that, then we are not doing the right thing as married couples. And I'm asking you all to rethink your marriage definition. If it's about you and your husband only, then that's not Islamic marriage. While it is important to focus on you and your husband, of course, and your children and your families and friends, of course, but the definition of Islamic marriage is extended. Islamic family is extended. It includes your blood of both the families, and you've come together by marriage. And then the neighbors, Prophet ﷺ said, that your neighbor has a right to you. In fact, he said, I'm worried that maybe the neighbors will inherit my wealth too. Now, it's so important to convert your insular interest of the two people to to the collective interest of the community. So how can I, as a couple, contribute to the well-being of my neighborhood? That's when you become part of the community. Not just the mosque, by the way. That's just a narrow definition of community. I'm talking about Muslims or non-Muslims, for everybody in this country where we live. In the Muslim majority countries, there are other ways, of course, I'm sure. But in here, the best way is to make sure that you are connected across. And of course, you go to the mosque regularly and you're involved, you're running programs. Can you see there are a whole host of things that I can list? The list will be extensive. You need to create something that will benefit others. It could be as small as, and I say small, I dare say small, as you just giving half an hour of your time to somebody locally. Visiting your neighbor, cleaning her garden, doing her shopping. It could be going to the hospital and checking out those who are not well. When my father passed away 8 weeks ago, we were in the hospital very regularly, and everyone else around. I remember looking very lonely, and every time I spoke to them, it made them so happy. In fact, I remember my own experience when I was younger, when I was in hospital. I've always been very active from my very young age, so I always used to belong to groups and organizations and hundreds of people I would know. So when I was in hospital after an accident, I was in the hospital for 9 weeks. Every day, 10, 15, 20, 30 people would come to see me. So the nurses got fed up. So they moved me from the communal ward to a ward on my own in a room which is private. And I had access to the back garden so people could come and go from behind me. Became all fed up. But I said to all my friends who used to come to see me, please go and say hello to everyone in the ward. If you bring me something, please bring a bit more so we can share it with everybody. Everyone in my ward was very happy that I was there for 9 weeks, especially the elderly. We need to become relevant and beneficial to people from young to the old. That's what I mean.
Okay, we'll take one more question. Yeah. So.
Last question. The last slide you talked about a marriage being about, not about physical, but it's about an interest in spiritual and physical. How does that work if it's like an arranged marriage in that kind of family context? Kind of point?
So I suppose I need to define what is an arranged marriage.
As in, if it's within the, for me, it's like if it's within the family.
I see, cousin marriage.
Cousin, yeah.
So it's not arranged marriage, cousin marriage. Okay. So if you know my opinion about cousin marriage, then you will already know that I disapprove. I disapprove of cousin marriages strongly, based on many things. First one is the saying of the Prophet of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Umar ibn Khattab is known to have said that get married far and wide. It's important to note why they said this. Number one. Number two, there are issues of genes and hereditary illnesses, etc. But third one is more important than anything else. Cousin marriages struggle in forming real intimate relationship at husband and wife level because they're still cousins. It's like that classical joke. Husband and wife are having a divorce. They're in Karachi, they went to the courts, and the judge annulled their marriage as they're leaving. The wife is crying her eyes out. The husband, now ex-husband, walks over and says, "Why are you crying, darling? We're still cousins." That joke tells it, for me, it makes it become real. So you can't untangle the cousins and create a relationship of intimacy, of trust, at that deeper level that is needed. It's very difficult. I'm not saying everyone is going to be a failure. I'm not saying that. Some will succeed. I've no doubt about it. Some will be very good in their marriage, and I pray for them all the time. But if you ask me my personal opinion, I discourage it often. I say to people, please stay away from cousin marriages. If that's what you are, if that's where you are, then we make dua and you do everything possible to make it work. Do you understand? Don't leave your cousin if you're married to them. I am not suggesting that ever. Keep the marriage going, do everything possible. But if you are not married and you're looking, tell your families, I love my cousin and she or he will be my cousin. I want to get married to somebody who's not my cousin. It's fine. Now the last thing about marriage. So just so that you know. Our parents don't have a right to get us married by force. And they don't have the right to choose on our behalf. We have to make the choice. They can introduce. They can bring as many proposals as they want. They can't force you to choose. They can't choose for you. You have to choose. You have to say, I accept. They can't say, I accept on your behalf. You have to say that. So when you are choosing, Allah has given you that right. Don't give that away. Allah has given you that right. So I'll finish with a personal story that I don't tell everybody, but it's published in the Guardian newspaper, so it's published. When I was 19, my father tried to get me married forcefully. Allah have mercy on his soul, he's passed away. I made dua for him. I forgave him a long time ago. I buried him with my own hands, so there is no issues, but I'm just telling you the story. So when I was 19, he tried to get me married to somebody. And he took me to Bangladesh for a holiday, which turned out to be a nightmare. But I'm his son, so I outsmarted him. I knew exactly what he was planning. So I went absolutely ready. When I could have run away from everything, he took my passport, I took my passport from him, he didn't even realize. I could have escaped it all, but I decided I'm going to stay and I'm going to break this culture. I'm not going to allow any member of my family ever again to be forced into a marriage. For 9 long weeks, I fought and I fought and I fought. And I'm literally talking about fought. Physically, I was attacked, but I didn't retaliate, but I did not give up. When I left, I went from UK to Bangladesh, weighing about 10-11 stones. I came back weighing 7.5 stones. I was just escaped. I contracted infections of my hip joint, for which I needed 2 operations. And I had TB embedded in my bones because of the dirty water and the environment in which I was. But I wanted to pray, and I wanted to stand there and fight the fight that is needed. And I broke the culture permanently from my family. Nobody has ever been forced into any marriage since that episode. And I said to my father, with due respect to you, you have no right to do this. You have no right to do this. I give you everything as a father, no problem, but this is not your right. One day I remember he said to me out of frustration, well, I'm going to kill myself. Emotional blackmail. I said to him, go ahead. You want to buy yourself a ticket to hellfire one way? You go ahead, Daddy. You're not going to move my heart by saying these statements. You have to be rock hard, stone-hearted, because you believe in a principle and a cause. And I believed in my right given by Allah that nobody has the right to take that away from me, even if it's my parents. So eventually, my dad had arranged everything. Everything was arranged. The girl, the gold, the jewelry, everything was done. So I need to unpack all of this. So I one day decided to go and see the girl's family, just by myself. I went there and I said to the father of the girl, Uncle, I want to tell you something. I'm really sorry, but I can't marry your daughter. I have not chosen her. My father has. I would like you to forgive me. And anything my father has given, she keeps. But please, please understand, your daughter has a right to choose her own husband too. And I have the same. I'm 19 at that time. He stood there and he said to me, I wouldn't have said anything. I wouldn't have even seen you. But I've heard so much about you. So I thought I'll meet you. And you've impressed me so much that even if you don't marry my daughter, there is no regret. Go ahead. Good luck in what you do. And of course he forgave me and we moved on. So whatever mission you take in life, be resolute in it. Never give up. Be a principled person in your marriage, in your life. Because ultimately, we as people individually, the only reason we want to get married is so that we can multiply our principled lifestyle. So we can increase the strength and the power of our dynamic family. Not to become worse. Why would you want to get married and become worse? What's the purpose of getting married if I'm going to slow down? So I said to my wife. So, truly and honestly speaking, you want to get married, please go ahead. But get married to the person and look for the person who will give you spiritual boost every day. Did I say that right? No, I didn't. Who will help you to gain your own spiritual boost every day. Who will help you in your aims and lives, and you will do the same in return. That's what I'm talking about. It's not about how she looks and how he looks. It's not about how much money they have. It's not about how many holidays they can take you to. These are shallow. You want to get married because of shallow reasons, I can guarantee you live a shallow life for the rest of your life. They will come as a byproduct of a bigger and a deeper yearning for truth, yearning for the true meaning of life. I'm a pauper, if you know my lifestyle, but Allah has thrown everything as a blessing in our direction because we don't chase money. Never chase money. Chase Allah, and Allah says, and I'll finish with this hadith. When my servant crawls in my direction, I walk towards him or her. When my servant walks in my direction, I run towards him and her. Even for marriage, go in Allah's direction. You'll find the right person. Thank you.